Hey there, Saki here from Sakitech, and in today's video, I would like to share a complete set of tips, tricks, features by delivering a full tutorial for the LG G6's camera. The G6 comes with an amazing camera, and it is essential to discover every single feature so you can squeeze the maximum benefit out of it. Now, before we dive in, it is important to understand that the LG G6 has two rear cameras. It has a 13 megapixel standard angle camera with an aperture of f1.8 and a 13 megapixel wide angle camera with an aperture of f2.4. I'll show you how to switch between the two as desired. So let's dive in and master this camera. So we know that the LG G6 has two cameras, and I want to make sure that you guys understand how to access each of these cameras. So right now it is using the standard angle lens, and you can see that by looking over here. As you can see, that one tree-like symbol is actually highlighted in blue. So that's the standard angle. If I want to go wide, all I do is I tap this one over here, and that switches the lens to the wide angle mode. So you can capture much more. Now this is always going to be here, so you can always switch back and forth as required in any mode that you are. Alright, so that's taken care of. The next thing I want you guys to understand is the basic camera interface. So here, this is what happens when you launch the camera. On the top here, when you tap this, you have the ability to select four different modes. You've got the auto mode, the square mode, the manual camera mode, which is the third one, and also the manual video mode, which is the fourth one. I'm going to go into each one of those, but first just understand that these are the main four modes, and each mode has a sub mode, and you enable those by tapping this one. So if I tap this one over here, it gives me the sub modes. So if I want to take a panoramic shot, I can use that. That's a 360 panorama. That's for a food. If you're taking a picture of a food, that's the mode you enable. But all these modes pertain to the main mode that is up here. So if I go over here to the square mode, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and if I tap the mode again, you can see that it has different sub modes that come out when I tap this mode button. Anyway, let's go back to auto for a minute and talk about that. So this is basically the mode most of us will be using. Now let's go back into the sub modes right over here. And there's a couple things I want to talk about. If you tap on pop out, that's a new feature that I really like. So if you tap this, it gives you some really nice options. So what you can do is, what happens is you get a square, and the middle of that square is in focus, and the outsides you can actually add effects to it, such as the vignetting effect right now, or even the lens blur effect. So that blurs it out, and then you can take a shot, and that's going to get saved. You can even combine all these different modes together, so you don't have to do just lens blur. You can combine lens blur with vignetting, or you can take that off. Okay, so this is something I wanted to show you guys because it's something new that I've never seen on a camera before. So let's go back out to the regular mode, and let me show you some of the settings you can achieve on this camera. Now the settings button is at the bottom here, and this just applies to every mode you go into. You can go into the settings. So let's go into the settings. And as you can see, there's a lot of things going on over here. Now here are the things. The first thing I love is the fact that you can add a signature underneath every picture that you take. So if this is not enabled, you simply enable it, then you tap on it, and it's going to go into the portrait mode. But then you can actually, type in the signature you want. You can pick a font that you want, and then you can save that. Let's just say add. And the great thing is, every time you take a picture, and then when you preview that picture, at the bottom of that picture, you're going to see that signature attached to it. Alright, so I just rotated the camera so you can see that signature at the bottom. So as you can see, it says sakitech. Again, you can add anything that you want in that portion. So let's go back to the camera. Let's tap this. That's the back button. So we're back in the camera. Go back into the settings. And the other thing I like to do is the cheese shutter option. Basically, if you enable this, you can take a photo just by using voice commands, which is great for group shots. So you can take a picture even of yourself from a distance. You can put your phone on a tripod like I have it on, and then you can take a picture of yourself or your friends and yourself from a distance by using voice commands. So all you do is you enable this thing right here. You go back out, and you can say any one of these things. You can say cheese smile, whiskey, kimchi. As you can see, as I was saying that, it launched the camera and took a picture. So let's test that one more time. Cheese. So that's fantastic. Let me go back out here into the settings, and disable that for now because I don't want it to go nuts every time I say cheese or anything that sounds similar to it. But right away, I want to talk about this option. This tracking focus option is brilliant. Okay, so basically it tracks and maintains focus on a moving object. And mostly it is for recording. So if you're recording somebody, and let's say your kid is playing on the field and you want to record him as he's playing soccer or whatever, or perhaps you have a dog that's running around, you want to take a picture, not a picture, a video of him, but you want to make sure that the focus remains on the dog or the kid. What you do is you enable tracking focus, you go back out, and then you pick the item that you want to remain focused on. Could be a car, okay? You tap on it, and now as you can see, there's a green square that is attached to that lens. If I move this lens, the focus stays on the lens. This is brilliant for taking videos, like I mentioned, of a moving object. The next step, of course, is if you go into the settings and if you go into timer, you can enable the timer so you can do 3 seconds. But the reason I like this is because you can combine the timer with actual voice commands. So normally if you go out and if you enable the timer, you take a picture, it's going to count down from 3 to 1 to 0 and it's going to take a picture. Great. But if you combine this with the cheese shutter option, it's even better. So let's take a look. LG. Absolutely fantastic. Let me disable both of those options for now because we're doing a demonstration here. And again, you can combine these two options together. Okay, and while we're here, let's take a look at the HDR mode. So if you go in here, you can switch between auto, on and off. As you know, what HDR does it takes multiple images. Let's say you take a photo of anything. It's going to take a bunch of different images of the same thing instantaneously, and then it's going to combine them together so as to give you a photo with more rich colors and more brightness. Okay, so you can actually disable this if you don't want this. By the way, if you can take a picture, you press the picture icon, but if you want to take a video, you press this icon, and that in fact starts to record the video. Okay, just be aware of that. Now LG has some amazing built-in functions. Now as you know, the phone has a really large and tall display. This is a 5.7-inch display. So if I go back into the settings, I'm going to show you this new thing that they came out with, which utilizes the extra screen real estate. So it's called camera roll. If you enable this, it actually gives you a camera roll that gives you a preview of all the pictures you're taking on the side over here. Okay, so you can even scroll through all the images that you have taken. I've taken a lot of these images, but these are the ones I took previously, so they're right here. Okay, but that camera roll really looks nice. And anytime I take a picture, it's going to show up at the bottom in the camera roll right over here. And of course, I can tap it and I can preview that picture really quick with my signature at the bottom. Fantastic. So really I recommend just keeping this camera roll on at all times. It really is useful, and you have a lot of screen to actually preview the actual photo in real time. Okay, so the other thing, let's go to auto and let's switch to the square mode. The square mode actually is kind of like the camera roll, but it's actually squared. So the pictures you take are going to have a 1:1 ratio. So these pictures are perfect for Instagram. Okay, as you know, Instagram only accepts square shots. But the great thing is when you take a picture of this, it quickly gives you a preview right next door. Okay, so here's the live viewfinder. This is where things are happening. But as soon as you take a picture, it shows you a real-time preview right next to it. So if you did not do a good job, you can go back and you can fix it. You can take another photo instantaneously. And the other thing here is if you go into the mode, if you tap this mode icon, you have a couple different options, okay? Now I'm not going to go into the details for each one of these. The reason I'm not going to do that is because you can actually just press this question mark and it tells you exactly what they are. First page, it gives you a summary, but you can swipe over and it gives you a detailed description of what each one of those sub modes do. So let's go back out here, but that's a square option, okay? Live, preview. Fantastic. Okay, so again, just to remind you guys, every mode has a sub mode. So that's why when I tap this one, I get different modes as opposed to if I was in the auto, I would be getting all these other modes. Okay, now another thing I want to talk about really quick, I'm going to go into very slowly, I'm going to go into the manual camera mode and the manual video mode, which are the advanced modes that give you full manual control over your camera and your video camera. But before that, I'm going to get some of the other things out of the way. Now, firstly, I want to tap this thing over here, and this thing actually gives you live filters, so you can pick a filter on the go. So if I like this filter, I can just choose this, and I can start shooting with that filter. So you can always tap that button, all right? Let's keep that at the regular. The other thing is, if you tap this, obviously, that's flash on. That's automatic flash, so it makes a decision based on how much light it is out there. And then this one is, of course, flash off. Now, another amazing little feature that most phones have, but a lot of people don't use or don't even know it is there, is this one. It's called tagging locations. So if I enable this, and if I take a photo, what that's going to do is it's going to actually save the exact location where that photo was taken, which could be very useful when you're trying to organize photos by location. And also, if you do enable location tags, you just have to be very careful, because when you send the photo out to somebody to share your pictures, they can actually go in, pull up the details of that photo, and know exactly where that photo was taken. So only enable the location tag for yourself, but if you know you're going to send a picture to somebody else that you do not care about too much, then you probably want to disable the location tags. Okay, and another thing that's very important, and again, a lot of people don't even know about this, if you go into the settings, on the top you've got photo size and video resolution. Now, photo size is pretty basic. If you go in here, you can change the resolution. So basically you can tweak the quality of the photo. You can go lower, like this one is a 4:3 aspect ratio. But if you want to take wide screen photos, you can go to 16:9. Okay, and if you keep going down, you can even choose 1:1, which is that square photos we just talked about a couple of minutes ago. You can just go to the square mode for those. But you can make those adjustments here as well. Okay, so if you want a wide screen, you go by 16:9. If you want a regular aspect ratio, which is 4:3, you just pick one of these guys. But the big thing is the video. So if you tap on video, you have a bunch of options. On the top, you've got UHD. Now, UHD is the thing we keep talking about. It is the 4K video option, and it's recorded at 30 frames per second. Then you've got the full high definition, which is 1080p. Now, this one over here and this one over here are two different things. So as you can see, one of them says 60 frames per second. When you record in 60 frames per second, your video will be much smoother than if you record in the regular option right here. Let me go back in. So the regular full high definition is 30 frames per second, okay? If you want something much more smooth, you want to record at 60 frames per second. Just be aware of that difference. And everything else over here can be chosen as well. You really don't want to go to high definition. That's 720p. That's really low. So you want to stick with full high definition at 60 or 30 frames per second, or you want to go to 4K recording, which records at 30 frames per second. Now, there's nothing wrong with 30 frames per second, but if you want a super smooth, buttery video, do the 60 frames per second. And finally, in the settings here at the bottom, you get something else. It's called the simple view. If you tap the simple view, you just get the most basic view possible. And the way to operate the camera in this view is you tap on the screen to take a photo. So if I want to take a photo of that lens that's sitting on the table over here, I tap on it, it focuses on it, and it takes a photo. Okay, that's a simple view. To exit the simple view, you tap this, and you're done. Additionally, to take photos, you can also press the volume keys. Now, mine are sitting at the bottom here, but if you were holding the phone the other way, it would be on the top. So you can always press one of these buttons, and that also acts as a shutter button, just so you know. And now we're going to go into the manual camera mode. The mode that nobody touches because it looks really scary. So let's go to the camera first. And as you can see, the entire interface has changed. You have all these things at the bottom and you have no idea what they are. Now I'm not going to be able to give you a full tutorial on this because you would have to go through a photography class, but basically you have these values at the bottom. For example, you've got the white balance that you can adjust, so you can adjust it by scrolling around, and as you can see it changes the overall temperature of the picture. You can control the ISO function. Again, all these things, the reason you want to go into this mode is to get the best possible shot. You can increase or decrease the brightness by playing with these values. And I said brightness, it's actually called exposure, but we're just going to stick to brightness to make it easy. Now the other thing is, you can even do manual focusing. So if you tap this, this allows you to manually focus in and out of things. Okay, as you can see, things get blurry and then things get sharper. So I can do manual focusing, or I can stick with auto. If I tap it again, I think over here, it allows me to stick to auto. And again, that's the ISO value. Again, it adjusts the exposure of the picture, the brightness. That's the shutter speed. Okay, you can lower that as I make it higher, the picture darkens. So let's keep that up here. And you would have a histogram right here. Again, if you're not a photographer, you don't know what that is, but that's a histogram right there. And that's the lock and unlock button. So if you tap this, it actually starts to operate automatically. But if you want to go into the full manual mode, you tap AE lock, that means auto exposure lock. And now you can tap these buttons and start to play with them. Alrighty? But if you want to use the auto mode, even in the manual mode, you can tap this and everything is going to adjust automatically, but you can still go in there and you can play with the settings. So white balance can still be changed, all right? So I recommend that you play with this setting as much as you want just to get a grip on it. But what I would recommend is if you want to learn more about it, you have to learn about ISO, shutter speed, autofocus, manual focus, and stuff like that, all right? Just to give you a pointer. Now, if you notice, when you're in the manual mode, there are no sub modes because they think you're a professional, so you're going to be doing everything by yourself, all right? By tweaking these values at the bottom. All right, so if you go into the manual video mode, you basically get some of the same options. Now, before I leave, actually, let me show you one more thing. With the manual camera mode, if you press settings over here, you do have one option here that you don't normally get, and that is the one that allows you to save as RAW. RAW photos can be transferred to your computer and they can be edited in some professional detail. Okay, just so you know. So let's go back out and switch over to the manual video mode, which is right over here. And basically you're going to be seeing the same interface, but at the bottom here you can actually see that it is picking my voice as I'm talking. And as you can see, the L means the left microphone here is picking my voice, and over here is the right microphone, so it's certainly stereo. And of course you get some good amount of control on your voice recording as well. So if you tap this, you can control the gain, the low cut filter, and the LMT, which is called the limiter, and as well as you also have a wind noise filter. So if you're outside and it's a little bit windy, you want to enable that, and that's gonna reduce the wind noise as much as it can. And everything else at the bottom is the same. So you got the autofocus, you've got the exposure value, you've got the ISO, shutter, and you've got the auto exposure lock and unlock buttons, as well as the white balance. Now, one more thing you can do with the video mode, with the manual video mode, is LG G6 comes with a hi-fi recording mode, which actually records with some really exceptional voice quality. So you're definitely able to capture higher quality sound. Now, to enable that hi-fi mode, you're gonna have to go into the settings and actually enable it right from here, okay? And as you enable it, it even says, record a video in high quality sound. On top of that, as you can see, you get some different options over here. You can actually change the video resolution right from here, which is what I talked about already. You know, the full high definition, the high definition, and all that good stuff. And you can change the frame rate to anything you want, basically. You can do 1 frames per second all the way up to 60 frames per second. Again, 24 is what actual movies are shot in. The movies that we watch in the theater, they're at 24 frames per second. 30 is just the basic frame rate we use for video recording on our smartphones, and 60 is for that smooth and buttery video motion. Now let's go back out. There's a couple other options here. You can do steady recording, and you can enable tracking focus and all this good stuff right over here. We already talked about all this stuff. So that's the manual video mode. Just remember, if you want to do hi-fi recording with high quality sound, make sure to go into the settings and enable that option. And if you look at the microphone now, it actually says hi-fi right at the bottom. Not too bad. Again, you can also apply filters here as you're recording, so not a big deal over there. But again, let's go back to auto, and that's basically it, guys. So I basically went over every setting out there, and now you probably have a better grip of how to use this camera. We pay a lot of money for our smartphones. It's best that we know how to use every aspect of it. Alright guys, well, thank you for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to sakitech for more videos like this, and also give this video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Have a fantastic day.